Hey folks, some big news. Podswag.com is the new home of all WTF merch. Soon we'll have some new shirts, new posters, new mugs, and all the rest. But for next month, you can get the classic WTF merch with free shipping. Go to podswag.com/WTF and enter WTF at checkout for free shipping on your entire order from now through May 23rd. That's podswag.com/WTF. Enter WTF at checkout. Why am I yelling? Why am I yelling at you for this? We're also sponsored today by Audible. Audiobooks are a great sidekick for summer activities, and Audible has the largest selection of audiobooks on the planet. So fill your summer with bestsellers like James Comey's A Higher Loyalty. Does he read it? Does he read it? I gotta go check. Does he read it? You never have to worry about Audible being out of stock of the hottest titles, and if you didn't like your audiobook, you can exchange it, no questions asked. Start a 30-day trial, and your first audiobook is free. Just go to audible.com/WTF or text WTF to 500-500. That's Audible, AUDIBLE.com/WTF or text WTF to 500-500. You can do it with audiobooks. All right? Let's do the show.
Lock the gate!
All right, let's do this. How are you, what the fuckers, what the fuck buddies, what the fucking ears, what the fucksters? Oh my God, what's happening? It's me, Marc Maron. This is my show, WTF. I'm still abroad. And today on the show, I talked to Mandy Stadtmiller about her new book, Unwifeable. It's available wherever you get your books now. This was an interview that actually took place in the new garage. We're sort of into the new interviews. We've had a few. It's happening. I just got to Dublin, and it was a whirlwind of food. I've been here 10 minutes, it seems. I got here, Sarah and I got here a little early. We were swept into the restaurant by the guy in charge of the hotel where we're staying. He's the guest services guy. He said he'll take care of our lunch. All I know is within the last, I'd like to say 17 minutes, I believe I ate a soft shell crab, a Mediterranean salad, a piece of soda bread, a piece of Guinness bread with butter, slathered with butter, and then we had some tea. And then there was like a 3-minute break, and then we got to the room, and there were scones in the room. So I had scones, clotted cream, jam, and some other tea biscuit type of things that were sort of questionable because I didn't know what the fuck they were, but I didn't stop me from eating them. One of them was some sort of rice ball, like a deep fried ball of rice pudding that you injected jam into. When have you ever heard that? So now I'm all jacked up on sugar and tea and shame. What I missed on the menu was something called duck fat roasties. I don't know what that is, do you? But are you like me in that if you saw that on a menu, duck fat roasties, you'd probably order it even if you didn't fucking ask what it was? I was very close to it, but I said, are they fries? And he said, no, they're potatoes roasted in duck fat. I'm like, okay, yes, I'll have some of those. And I think I ate probably the equivalent of 6 potatoes. Maybe I'm exaggerating. Yeah, I'm probably exaggerating, but you get the drift. I don't need to make this entire intro about food, but this has just been my last hour since I've got to Dublin. And I'm incapacitated because I'm full of food. We're here for 4 days. I'm excited about it. There's things I want to do. There's more things I want to eat. I have a show tonight. There's still a few tickets available at Vicar Street. Not many tickets. So if you are in Dublin and you're hearing this, I believe you can still get tickets. Oh my God. I ate too much. I want to tell you a little bit about Sonos because we're sponsored today by Sonos, and I have Sonos at my house. You know that. This is the speakers, right? It's my Sonos. You can run the Sonos from your phone with the app, but I had the guy from Sonos show me how to run my record player through it. So now I can run my records through the Sonos around the house. I gotta be honest with you, between you and me, they sound pretty damn good. Also, a great thing about Sonos is how easy it is to set up. I've moved stereo equipment before, and it's always a pain with tons of wires and plugs. That's not the case with Sonos. Your Sonos speakers and home theater setups can move seamlessly with you. It'll really change the way you listen to music and the way you watch movies and TV. Or how about the way you listen to podcasts? You can be going from room to room in your house listening to me right now, like I'm in every room. That could go either way, people, knowing me, but you get the drift. Sonos is offering WTF listeners 10% off one order of $2,500 or less for any product on Sonos.com. This offer is available for a limited time only and cannot be combined with other discounts or promotions. Use the promo code WTF10, that's capital WTF10 at Sonos.com to receive this offer. Okay? All right. Amsterdam, I wanted to tell you about it because it was, I love the city. It's a beautiful city. It's an old city, but it feels a little seedy, which is not bad. The show was great. I had a great time with the people that came out. I chose not to do sad Jew things. I did not go to Anne Frank's house. I did not go to the Jew museum, the Jewish museum. It was either, do I want to do the sad Jew stuff, or do I want to go on a boat? So feeling guilty, I thought there was probably the possibility that if I didn't do the sad Jew stuff, that I would feel guilty. Then I'd be a sad Jew on a boat, a pensive Jew, maybe looking upward, just floating around Amsterdam's canals, sad Jew on a boat, which I discussed in my Amsterdam show. There was a lot of improvising. The guy who opened for me, this guy Adam Fields, did a lovely job. And he hooked me up with a guy who's actually a comic, but also owns a boat company business. This guy Neil Robinson and his partner Jesse Cohen. They have a boat business. Those damn boat guys. That's the name of their boat business. DAM. Get it? Like Amsterdam. And nice guys. They offered to take us out on the canals, just me and Sarah, and they drove us around. And it was fortunate that the pickup spot was right across from the Anne Frank's house. So I did see the house from the outside. But I did not. Am I a bad Jew for not doing the sad Jew stuff? I'm not going to forget. I'm not going to forget. Never forget. I'm not forgetting. I'm not trivializing. I just didn't do it. We chose to walk around, take a boat ride. It was proactive. All right. Now I feel, I don't know. We're sponsored today by Simply Safe, the company that's changing the way you keep yourself, your loved ones, and your belongings safe. That's a good enough reason to be on board with Simply Safe Home Security, but I also like how Simply Safe is ready for anything that gets thrown at it. If a storm takes out your power, Simply Safe is ready. If an intruder cuts your phone line, Simply Safe is ready. Say they destroy your keypad or siren, Simply Safe will still get you the help you need. Maybe it's overkill. Maybe you don't need to be ready for every single worst case scenario, but Simply Safe is always ready just in case. That's what makes it great. I spend days thinking about worst case scenarios. Sometimes I do it for sport. But really, if you want to relax in your home, you don't want to be worrying about the worst things that can happen. And Simply Safe lets you take your mind off that stuff. Simply Safe could and should cost you an arm and a leg, but it doesn't. The folks at Simply Safe want to charge you what's fair, not the highest amount they can mark up the price, which means you get Simply Safe for $14.99 a month. No contracts, no hidden fees. What more can you ask for? Go today to simplysafe.com/WTF to check out all their home security options. That's simplysafe.com/WTF. Mandy Stadtmiller is on the show today. She is a writer. She's written for many things. She's written for New York Magazine, XO Jane. She's also known for her dating column in the New York Post called About Last Night. Now she's written a book, Unwifeable. And she talks about me a little bit in it, and we talk about that. So that's compelling, isn't it? So this is me and Mandy Stadtmiller talking back in the garage. I'm in Dublin. This is happening in the past across the ocean. Yeah, this is the half-done garage. Not even half-done. It's just like I'm just trying to make it sound right. But you're among the first few guests
Wow.
in the new space.
That's really, really cool.
Is it?
Yeah. I mean, the old one, legend.
Yeah, right.
But this is great because you're closer to. It's good to put your life above your legend.
Yeah, is it?
Yeah, don't you think?
Well, I'm having a weird time. I'm not. I love this place, but it is a big change and it's weird. It's been fine, but and I thought, it is good. That's a good way to put it. Life above your legend.
Life above your legend.
Like, what am I going to stay in that garage for the rest of my life just because it's the place that the thing happened first?
Right. Yeah. You build the next part of the story in a place that is better for you personally. So
that seems like a theme.
Yeah. Don't you think?
Well, that's what you wrote your book about.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Like, I read parts of it, but I don't want to, I didn't want to, I'd rather.
No, whatever you want to
talk about the story then, because I'm trying to remember, obviously no one likes to get an email saying, here's a passage from a book, about me where I fucked you. Right. And, I just want to make sure you're okay with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, I said that I would, I took certain people out because I didn't want to, I just don't want to be that person.
Right.
And
So you took him out without even asking. You're just sort of like, I'm not going to do that to that person because
no.
Oh, yeah.
If they said I don't feel comfortable,
then
there was one when I talked to Jonathan Ames, he
got prickly.
Yeah,
weirded out.
Yeah, and I mean, my feeling was that when you are, I didn't put him in a light where he did anything wrong.
Right.
I think the whole book was laughing at myself and making myself the asshole.
Right.
So
tricky with memoir though, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
I did that, and I threw some people under the bus in a way, but
I did. Okay.
But I didn't think I did. Like it was my dad.
Right.
But like I thought, like, well, this is my side of the story, and I have a right to it. But boy, he was mad at me for years.
Really? Yeah. Yeah. My sister, she disputed to the death certain things, and I took,
oh, really?
I took those things out, and I mean, it wasn't
strange, right? How
critical to the story.
Right.
Yeah.
It's weird how memories, don't like, someone else's perception of the same event is just like not the same.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and that's why I tried to show everyone. The only person I didn't show was my ex-husband, just because I just felt like
why
that
you don't want to engage with him, probably.
Yeah, pretty much. And he's a totally fine person.
Right.
I mean, there's a reason you marry someone in the first place.
Sure.
But yeah, I didn't want to get into all of that because some people have the ability, and I mean, and he probably still will, where you can write an email to someone and it just eviscerates you at your cellular level.
Right. Yeah, it's weird. Like my point was, like, I'm not, when you sent me that and I read it and you said there's an option where, I don't mention your name, but then I read it, I'm like, no, like if that's not bad. That's what happened. Why am I going to be a dick about it?
Yeah. I mean, that's very cool of you. And it makes me respect people who tend to open up about their own lives when they aren't just super intensely control freaky about always controlling the narrative no matter what.
I was just trying to put it together. I mean, like, I know this is an awkward start. It's not really awkward, but it was on my mind. But I know that this book is about, sort of your journey from divorce through this fucking booze festival that you had of self-hate and fun.
Yeah.
And then onward into recovery and into a good relationship.
Yeah. Kind of, feral whore.
Yeah.
Stops being feral whore.
I was trying to remember how it all happened. Like, did you interview me and then ask me to be in the pilot thing?
Right. So,
I don't remember what happened. I know. Did you write it in the book? I read it.
No, I didn't include all the things. I had to cut thousands and thousands of words. So I
knew you knew my friends I had. Like, I didn't know you, but I don't know how.
Well, I mean, I can tell you exactly because I think it's an interesting example of how people can meet people that they admire,
Right.
which is, I'll just go through it really quickly.
That's all right. We have time.
I'm in Chicago and I'm in a PR job, and during the day, all I do is watch comedy online while I'm writing.
This is before you moved to New York.
Before I moved to New York, and you and Taylor Negron are the only two people who, when I saw them, I then looked them up immediately. Mm-hmm. And I think I was watching something of you on Conan.
Yeah.
And so I joined the email list.
My email list?
Your email list. And then, cut to years later when I'm at the New York Post and I get your email saying you're doing something with Janeane Garofalo.
Right.
And I'm, a huge Janeane Garofalo fan. And so I asked the Post if I could shoot some video of you guys.
Yeah.
And I went and I did that, and they put up a little New York Post video. And then I was working on a story about stalking exes of exes.
Yeah.
And in terms of, seeing
who they're fucking. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then so I quoted you.
That joke, yeah.
For that piece.
Right.
And then I was out in LA and I had a good meeting with HBO, and we talked about doing, some kind of show inspired by my life. And so I just was like, I've got to shoot something.
Right.
And I reached out to you to play the role of my boyfriend who I ended the relationship by fucking two Italian pilots that I met on the street.
That's a true story?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I'm not very good at dealing with emotions. I just suddenly everything comes up, and then I do something like that, and I'm trying to be better about that kind of thing.
So you emailed me?
I think I called you, and you were like, "Yeah, okay."
Right, because
I think you were like, "This girl might be, I don't know, whatever. What can it hurt?"
Well, I remember I checked you out because you knew comics. Like you somehow were integrated in the community. And I know in the book now how you met everybody. So we go to your house, we shoot the thing where it gets a little crazy in the shooting.
Yeah.
Because we got to make out.
Right. Yeah. Because you're playing my boyfriend.
Right.
And the little student who was shooting it, she's like, "Now slap her ass." Now, give her the shocker. I mean, she didn't say that, but it was just.
It got no boundaries real quickly.
Yeah, yeah. And it was.
Do you still have that tape?
I do, yeah. I do have the tape.
How does it look?
I mean, it's funny.
Yeah.
My body definitely looks tighter. I think you look the exact same. So. But,
so then we do that. We make out fake. And then we decide, well, that felt good. Let's make out real.
Right.
And then you came out to Queens.
Yeah.
I remember that was quite a trip, and you were a little drunk, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, not
terribly.
Just fun drunk.
Right. And then we had sex, and you told me to. This is a funny beat in the book, actually.
Thanks.
And I wish I remembered it better. But you told me to slap you.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I did.
Right.
And then we had sex one more time.
Right.
And you were sober.
Yeah.
And then I slapped you again, and you're like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boy, is that ever an illumination into drunk sex versus sober sex? You know?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Because I'm not a slapper, really.
No, and I'm not an ask me to. I think I wanted to show that look how interesting I am.
Oh yeah.
And
well that seems to be sort of a through line of the book that the two kind of unmasking yourself, right?
Yeah, very much so.
So What is the whole journey of it? Because before we get into the journey, are you sober now? You got sober?
Yeah, I'm 7 years. Yeah.
7 years?
Yeah, 2010.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
That's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's a big life difference. It's everything, and I have to say, and I have asked to be, slapped in sex sober
recently.
Since
sure.
then.
Well, I mean, but that's fine.
Yeah, no, but I was gonna say it makes it exciting. It makes it. I guess I just want to give a little PSA advertisement for sobriety that, you know, the sex
you can
that
be
you have
very dirty
is,
in sobriety.
Yeah, because
Sure.
you're so aware. It's almost like you are on a drug.
Yeah, but that can become a problem.
Oh, okay.
Sure.
Yeah. Oh,
I mean,
right, with the whole
if you
sex
replace
addiction
it,
thing. And
yeah.
which is kind of what I did after initially.
So when did you get sober? Like right after I saw you? Like 2000 and what?
June 2010.
Wow.
Yeah.
So like so I got you right pre-bottom.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, what I remember.
But at least you weren't my bottom.
No.
Always, yeah.
I wasn't. It couldn't have. Not with 2 times.
I'm sure that I am someone's bottom. You know,
probably.
where that's
like,
always
what did
just
I
such
do?
an interesting question.
What did I do?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, you could probably, though, if it really was that, eventually they'll reach out to make an amends of some kind.
Yeah. I did those during the book because I had never done my 4th step, and I was just so consumed with resentment and just toxic anger and
sober?
self-pity. Well, I mean, sure, when I got sober, but also during the course of, I wrote this book over, you know, the past year.
Yeah.
And there was a time when I was having to go through all these historical documents of emails and voice recordings and
you kept everything clearly. Yeah, text.
Yeah. I've always kind of had that mindset.
Yeah.
And so
What mindset's that? I'm going to need this. I'm going to need this shit.
Well, I think the mindset that the one thing people have always responded to me in terms of my writing is when I write about my life.
Right.
And so
evidence of your life needs to be kept.
Yeah, which is so narcissistic.
I don't know. It's natural. I mean, you like a lot of times you want that stuff and you don't know where to find it. You know, it's weird how much you do have saved, even if you don't know you have saved. You know what I mean? Like there's texts where you thought you threw them away and you're like, oh no, I've got all this shit from a decade ago.
Well, and now sometimes if someone texts me something that pisses me off, I delete the whole thread because it's like a living thing in my phone.
Right. But then it's still there.
Yeah, that's true.
Like if you text them, like it all comes right back.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
You can never get rid of anything. It's kind of scary, but I guess it's good, but it's weird.
Yeah.
All that shit is out there.
Yeah, you could Unabomber yourself and go off the grid. People are doing it.
But so what, you were filled with resentment while you were writing it?
Yeah, because I just felt like, I just felt like, this person doesn't understand the context of this.
When you were reaching out to people, you mean?
No. Even before, just when I was, and I would give this advice to anyone who works in a corporate job, you can export your mailboxes, just find a tech person, because a lot of times you lose.
Oh, right. When you change
years
jobs.
of, exactly. And so that's how I had a lot of my post stuff, is I had done that. And so if I was looking through, just emails from someone who maybe had cultivated me to be their best friend because they thought I could help them in their career by a post placement or whatever, and then, change their attitude, whatever it was that caused resentment, or, just guys, whatever. My mood, cause, so I got married to, Pat Dixon, who's a comic, and he was the one who suggested it when I was writing, because it was interfering with our lives. I was just, sitting there, crying or taking out my anger on him. And
going through this stuff.
Yeah. And when I did it, I just, in an hour, I wrote out 300 different resentments. Wow. I was like, Jesus Christ.
Gotta unload that.
It's weird how much you carry inside yourself.
Oh yeah. And it's just it just eats at you. Makes you all tight and fucked up in the head. It's hard.
And you take it out on other people. That's what I do. I mean,
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because you can only take so much out on yourself before it just kind of flows over.
Yeah.
Give yourself a break. Ruin someone else's life.
Yeah. It's like you want to, it's like you want to infect people with what you feel. You become a toxic human being.
Right. Because you're not letting it go, or you're not being honest with yourself, or you're not, processing it. Well, I remember the one thing I do remember, and I wasn't even drunk, but I remember your small apartment. I remember hanging out with you, but I do remember you were hostilely sexy. like you were hostile. Like, there was like, I'm not, it's like.
Oh, no. I mean, it's
like,
a very, very cool, turn of phrase,
But you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I remember you being like, like I knew you were angry. I don't know at what, but I felt like, I think we had fun, but there were moments where I'm like, is this enough? I mean, what else can I do? Do I need to get... Right?
Yeah.
Like, you're sort of using me to beat you up somehow, sexually.
Right. Oh, very much so. Yeah. No, and I tried to, because I tried to make that clear when I wrote about sexual encounters that were kind of sketchy or abusive, that it was a joint effort, because there are times when I wrote about losing my virginity in the book, and that was, I wouldn't say I had a whole lot of culpability for that, because I was 15 and I was what I was. I had never really drank, got blackout drunk. But as an adult, I had been in the world, and I wasn't being manipulated. I wasn't being taken advantage of a lot of times. It was, I wanted someone to debase me, because that's what my Pavlovian association was with sex.
Right.
And
were you able, and you track that in the book? Like, where you grew up here?
I grew up in San Diego, yeah.
And what's the story down there? Both your folks still down there?
Yeah, they're both down there, and I have kind of a weird dysfunctional family. My dad is a blind Vietnam vet who
Did he lose his eyes there?
Yeah. He lost his eyesight in Vietnam when he was 21 in 1968, and has kind of like a rageaholic frontal lobe injury that leads to a lot of unpredictable behavior. And then my mom is severely depressed and has obsessive compulsive disorder, so has a thing where she has to wash her hands. And
well, I guess the fact that he's blind and a rager is a little bit comforting, in the sense that
that's hilarious.
You can sort of get out of the way if you need to.
I always wanted my dad to just like me and approve of me, and I think I definitely was just one of those. I think Wayne Fetterman has some joke about having benefited a lot from women's daddy issues and wanting to go back and, thank the fathers.
Sure.
And that's obviously.
I used to do a joke about that, about my a business card, resolving daddy issues since 1989.
Exactly.
Yeah. But they don't get resolved. That's not going to do it.
Well, I think that I have experiences in my family that are somewhat similar to yours, in that I feel like I've like Pat has experiences too. I think this must be a commonality for a lot of people in entertainment, is you don't ever get the great job, kid. I'm really, really impressed.
Right.
If anything, it starts to become a weird kind of sadistic mindfuck.
Right. Sort of like, okay, like there's a tone to it. Like, or they pretend like they don't know what you did.
Yeah.
Or like it's not that important.
Yeah. My sister's reaction was, to my book advance, well, you're going to have to pay taxes on that.
Right.
And I was just like, bravo, hats off. I had a interview with Artie Lang that I was proud of recently.
Yeah.
And my dad has told me to always call him and tell him when I have something in the Daily Beast, so that he can then listen to it on his blind person reader or whatever.
Right.
And so I did that as he asked me to. And after that, his reaction was, that took me a long time to read. And I tweeted that back at the New Yorker TV writer.
Yeah.
And she said, bravo, excellent neg.
Emily?
Yeah, exactly, Emily. Yeah. Which there's something about just other people acknowledging that is a dynamic and that you're not just a crazy person.
Right. Because
that
it's
can
hard
be helpful.
Yeah. Definitely. Because when you have that, when you grow up with that, you assume even good things that people say are somehow loaded. Like I can't take a compliment without thinking like, what do you know, like, so it is hard to tell, but those are pretty clear.
Yeah.
But with somebody who I have a relationship with, or I've decided doesn't like me, or I decided is judging me, even if they earnestly say, hey, that was great, I'm like, yeah.
Yeah.
But not as much anymore.
I just have different levels for people, and I restrict how I take in whatever they're saying so that I can kind of protect my heart and head. So it's like I have certain people who are in the sadistic frenemy, but yet they're wildly intelligent category, so I keep them around. But I know that they're always going to be a little bit poisonous. And then you have the people who don't have some agenda and aren't playing games. And then I guess
hurt you.
You have Al-Anon meetings for the rest.
Right. So. Yeah. Keeping boundaries when you grow up with rage and weirdness is like and no boundaries. It's horrendous. It's horrendous. Like there are some people, like I'm pretty good with like angry people with the boundaries. Like I know when somebody's like, no, fuck, I don't need to deal with that at all. But needy people, that's a whole other different thing.
Yeah.
They can crawl right under my fucking skin.
Well, how so? I mean,
well, just like, some people are very kind of like, I can feel when somebody's sad and needy. Yeah. And like, I can't, if someone's just an asshole or a douchebag or some, over, compensating alpha dude, but like I see him and we're around and they're friends kind of. I have, I can hold that boundary. But if someone's just exuding like sad neediness, lostness, like I feel it. Like I feel it like, oh God, like I almost get mad at them.
But does that, do you tend to go for women like that? I mean, do you have...
No.
Okay, that's what I was wondering is like what your experience are...
Intimate experiences?
Well, yeah, I mean, when you say it gets under your skin, is it because that person...
It's my dad.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, he was just always sort of like, sad. And,
I always say that my dad gets kind of like a misery boner. Like just cannot wait to say. And I mean, and he's had I always feel like I have to do a long qualification.
Sure.
Because people listen and they're just like, what an asshole to be talking about in anything but hero worshiping terms. Yeah. This guy, but I mean, you don't know until you know.
Right.
But yeah, just he, I mean, when I told him that I was getting married and I'm 39 and every conversation as a woman when you're in your 30s is, well, are you seeing it? Is there any possibility? And so you kind of think this is a slam dunk thing. This is slam dunk news.
Right. Yeah.
And my dad said, I just don't want to see you get hurt. Uh-huh. And I got so...
By anybody but me.
And I got... very interesting. Yeah. Yeah, very interesting. And I got really upset. And then he just started screaming and saying, well, why don't you give me a script? I'm sick of being the family's asshole. And he got off the phone. And then my mom said, oh, Dad. You know, and
right. Oh, good codependent.
Yeah. Yeah, she very much is. I mean, she is a fascinating woman. She is hilarious. She is one of the just driest, funniest people I've ever met. And she had me one time type up her essay for one of her continuing credits to be a teacher.
Right.
And she was having to study, I think, like microcosm and macrocosm in school teaching areas.
Education.
And in education, yeah. And so the line in there that was really revealing, she was writing about choices in her life. She started out by saying, I married a blind man so I would never have to be alone. She literally just wrote that. And
oh man.
And I mean, part of you kind of respects that self-awareness, and then part of you is just, and the
she
other,
would always be needed.
Yeah, she would always be needed. And the other interesting thing about my parents is
She married him after he got back?
yeah, people everyone is super interested in that. Yeah. Yeah, she actually cut off a engagement to a man who was super normal with both eyeballs and just, an upstanding guy in Washington State, and she cut it off when she met my dad because
she got a winner. This guy.
He is very charismatic, and I will say there's something about that alpha war energy and the fact that he really shouldn't have survived. It was 13 hours of surgery to get him. Did he get shot in the head? Yeah, he got shot twice in the face, and
oh my God.
And yeah, so there's that kind of, X factor, I think, about people like that.
Yeah. Was he a drinker too?
Well, so he didn't drink for a long time because he has a metal plate in his head. And
classic.
So the
classic metal plate Vietnam vet in the head guy.
Yeah. And by the way, everyone in my family, I feel like above else worships comedy. And funny.
Right.
And so that is the one thing I love about them.
Yeah.
Because
it works
everything we're saying, they would enjoy.
Good.
Yeah. And it just, to me, that's a very special thing.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
it's a pleasant way to avoid feelings.
That's something Pat has taught me, which is weird because I thought he was going to be just another dick comic. And the fact that he had all these years of therapy and sobriety and didn't like little stupid jokes being made when you're in the middle of a real moment.
Sure.
It was like, what?
Right.
What are you talking about? No, that's what we do to get past it.
Yeah. Just bury it more with funniness.
Yeah, but so my dad was adopted, and he was given up for adoption because his birth mother was an alcoholic cocktail waitress who had an affair with a married man, and then his adoptive parents were both alcoholics also. And
this guy's a triple winner, huh?
Yeah. And
then 1, 2, and then Vietnam.
So he got another doctor, I don't know when it was, like 10 years ago or something. And he said, no, you can drink, just not liquor. And so, yeah, my parents share.
Like beer?
Like wine. Oh. They share wine.
So no hard
night.
Liquor because he knew that would escalate quickly.
Yeah, I don't know I don't know how the whiskey plus metal plate.
Oh, it was
equals.
Something like that.
That was so he now very much enjoys wine, and that was another fight we had was when I went home to live with my parents in San Diego when I was 36, and
when was that?
So I'm 42 now, but that was 2012. And I'd come out here. I had met Scott Einzinger, who used to be, like EP at Howard Stern, and he was a TV guy, and I had done my charming song and dance. And, he said, well, I'll fund you to leave the Post and come out to LA, and, we can, do a business together. And then we had a fight, and he kind of yelled at me, and I just said, well, fuck this shit. I'm going to go live with my parents when I'm 36 and have $300 in the bank.
Oh, so that's a big life turn.
Yeah.
And you were sober.
And I was sober, yeah. And so, but in those, it was like my second year of sobriety, and so I'm living with my parents, which I'm sure they were thrilled about. Whenever your 36-year-old comes home and has quit the New York Post, and it's just like, this is what I'm doing now, guys.
Yeah, staying here in San Diego.
Yeah, and they, but my dad, I felt like, just again he's really into his wine.
Yeah.
So he would ask me to like pick out the bottle for the night.
Yeah.
And I would try to explain that I'm not one of those people who is just like, you can't drink around me. In fact, like right.
But
but to me, I felt like the lack of sensitivity of even wondering that.
Right. Yeah.
And then, doing a toast to me and my sobriety. And I just like, sometimes it just feels like.
No, he's a devil.
Sadistic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there's no doubt that, like, that's his connection. That's how he engages with you emotionally.
But I love him. It's like I hate talking shit about him. He's funny and I love him and he's great. It's just he's a very unique human being.
You're being very diplomatic, which is a nice word for codependent and protective. But yeah,
I can't. The idea of
no, you don't want to throw your dad under the bus.
Well, and also I wouldn't be a writer if it wasn't for my dad.
Well, that's what I was going to say is that eventually you get to a point with these people where you realize their shortcomings and you're, you know enough about yourself to detach from the shitty ones and actually be able to say, all right, I'm not going to change that guy. Right? Yeah. And that's just the way he is.
Well, and that was something that I never went to Al-Anon because I didn't think, my dad, when he drinks, I like it. He's like, a tiger under sedation, it's like, great, do that, and, but when I called him, I think the first time I was trying to work on my 4-step and to talk to him about resentments, he said, do I want to hear what a shitty parent I was? No. And I was such a wreck when I went to my therapist, and that was when she really forced me to go to Al-Anon, and that's when I started kind of implementing the boundary of detaching with love, but also, go where it's warm, don't go to the hardware store for milk, and not trying to continuously close that loop of getting that closure and that healing, because all you're doing is just continuously rewounding yourself and being like a hamster on a trauma wheel.
Yeah, and you do that in all your relationships, right? You know? Well, I mean, you got to figure the guy's got to have a pretty good chip on his shoulder for pretty good reasons.
Sure. Yeah.
So when did you leave home? How many siblings you have?
I have one older sister.
That's it? Yeah. Mm-hmm. What does she do?
She works in, she's been very successful in retail all of her life.
Is she down there?
Yeah, she's right around the San Diego area. Yeah. And so I was going to write my book about the Post or whatever, and then I got a call from XO Jane, and then I went back to New York. So that's how I got out of San Diego.
How long did you actually stay home?
2 months.
Oh, that's not bad. So It wasn't like you weren't like, well, you didn't dig in.
No,
you're like,
let
me get my old stuff out. Can I sweep in my old room kind of shit?
No. It was really interesting though too. I feel like everyone who has a dysfunctional childhood should go back as an adult when they're sober and re-experience it and see all the things that you went through when you were a kid and how that must have affected you and because I mean, I know it still very much affected me as an adult.
Comes right back. I mean, I see it all the time, and it's like it's disturbing, really, because it still affects you. Yeah. I mean, no matter how fucking sober you are, like I have very little patience for the emotional dynamic I have with my parents for more than a couple of days, and it's not even that destructive. It's just sort of like, ugh.
Yeah, I just want to like focus on like an interesting thing is that they adore Pat, and so I feel like if I can always have Pat there and he can just be pulling up Johnny Carson and Jack Benny and they can be talking about comedy and my dad can be giving his philosophies on why, Richard Pryor and Robin Williams and, then that's all I want to do. Like, I don't want to, but my dad is really funny. Like he said at the end of the trip when Pat and I went out there, he said, well, this has been incredibly emotionally exhausting. Pat said, that is so cool. I can't imagine my family saying that. Yeah. And, those are the parts of my family that I love is that extreme honesty. Yeah. So.
Yeah, well, it's good to have someone you love to go there and kind of, step in front of the bullets for you.
Yeah, you kind of need a cushion.
Yeah, sure, yeah, definitely.
Even if you're not in a relationship, you should just audition someone for the role of familial cushion.
Visit you pay, so it's a service. Be my, I did that with women for years. Just like when I'd go to Florida to Thanksgiving or whatever, even if I wasn't with them for that long, I'd be like, come on. And
they're like, be fun.
Yeah. I'm meeting your family. And I'm like, don't just, I just need somebody there to step in between when she comes at me.
It's like a distraction, like in war.
Yeah. But when did you leave home initially to go to New York? What was the big idea?
So I went to Northwestern for journalism school,
in Chicago.
93 to 97. And
Chicago,
so that was
right?
when I left. Yeah, that's, Evanston, a little north of, Chicago.
Yeah, I know where that is.
Yeah.
There's a gig there.
Yeah.
In, Rogers Park.
Yeah.
There used to be a main stage theater. It's nice there.
Yeah,
right?
very much so, yeah. And then I kind of traveled all over working in different newspapers and then.
Doing straight journalism stuff?
Oh, yeah.
Like
definitely.
where? Like what different papers? Like hometown shit?
No. So part of Northwestern's program is something that they call either teaching newspaper or teaching magazine.
Uh-huh.
And so depending on what you want to go into, or teaching TV, they place you actually at a newspaper. And so for one quarter, you work at that newspaper. So when the OJ trial happened and when the Northwestern Wildcats won the Rose Bowl and it was all historic, in 95, I was down at the Fort Lauderdale Sun Sentinel, and I was doing cops and all of those things.
Did you like that?
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah, it's. I mean, the thing about newspaper people is that they're just like comedy people. They have incredibly dark senses of humor.
Beat up.
Yeah, it's just there's a certain seen it all, understand the big picture, honesty, you know, and I kind of wrote about the Post being that way, is just the very dark, you know, well, I pitched that story and I felt another egg die, you know, you know, don't worry, when I come back, you'll be spared, you know, I mean, just, it's, that for me is the entire comfort of life, because it's filled with so much tragedy. And I think that is the most healing thing there is really dark humor, to be able to, like, instead of just be like a victim to it, to be able to, I don't know, get some kind of like life force juice from
you know, you grew up with it. I mean, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I mean, being like, you know, spend your whole life with a guy who, you know, went through what your dad did, and then have to deal with the, you know, the balance of him having his own sort of issues, and then how it's manifesting in the family. I mean, how are you, and then the humor part of it, how you were like designed for dark humor.
Yeah. And I think the other thing about, you know, my dad was seeing how, just completely phony and full of shit people are, because, you know, you would see someone who might be giving a speech about giving back to veterans and then just not want to get anywhere near my dad because they didn't want to have to deal with fucking that, you know?
Yeah.
And
the angry blind guy.
Yeah. And seeing, you know, just people, staring at him and seeing people's reactions, I think really informed a lot of my appreciation for authentic people, versus just, you know, users and status climbers.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I mean, you talk about that a lot, like just even in this conversation. Like, I mean, I have a hard time identifying, but you know, users and status climbers a lot of times, because I've never been in a position to where like I could be used, I guess. But I mean,
you're kidding, right?
Not really.
I mean, even now, I mean, you have.
Well, now, well, sure, I know when people want to do the podcast, but you know, I know also like, no, you're not going to do the podcast. You know what I mean?
Right.
But so there's that. Yeah, I can't be duped by it.
Oh, okay.
But like I'm sort of a sucker sometimes. I don't always know when someone's being earnest or they're just ambitious.
Right.
Until after, you know, it takes time.
Yeah.
I don't always know it right away.
You got to have sex with them first.
Oh, is
and
that
then
how-
just.
But like, how'd you get the gig at the Post, and why the Post? I mean, did you like the Post?
So I got it because he's now the editor-in-chief of the Post, Stephen Lynch. He had always liked my writing when I was a student at Northwestern and had kind of followed my career. And so
What were you doing? How did he see your writing?
Well, so I had the places I had worked up until the point where I left newspapers. I had interned at the Village Voice.
Yeah.
And I had gotten
when it was still a
very
paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I worked for Leslie Saban, and I got a very competitive internship right when I graduated, working for the style section of the Washington Post, which was like, oh, she's got some buzz on her in journalism and feature writing. And then after that, I went to kind of like what's known as like a kind of stepping stone paper. Like I worked with Jeff Zeleny, who then went on to become the Obama correspondent, and now he's on TV all the time. And at the Des Moines Register in Iowa. So I worked there for a year, and all that time I dated for like 5 years my college sweetheart, and I just was really unhappy at the newspaper. I left it. I got married, in Iowa, and I took a job working in PR. I was writing for Northwestern Medical School's alumni magazine.
Oh my God! And you were married? You didn't marry your college sweetheart?
I did, yeah. Oh. So I was with him 10 years total, 5 years married.
Right.
From when I was like 20 to 30. And then so I started at a certain point, I was on a track to become working at Northwestern, you get, huge college discounts. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, how can I use this? So I did everything I needed to do, and I got into the master's program in education at Northwestern, and I was going to have like a safe, nice little life as an English teacher, married to this guy who didn't really like me very much. And then the first course that I took was, storytelling, because I needed a public speaking requirement. Yeah. And I had this great teacher, Reeves Collins, and it was right when 9/11 happened. And what I did was I wrote the story of my dad that I had tried to write for Gene Weingarten, who's kind of like a big deal editor at the Post. He discovered Dave Barry, and he had been open to me writing about my dad for the Post. And I couldn't do it when I was that age, when it was 1997. And I was an intern, and I'm interviewing my dad's trauma surgeon and asking him about where the bullets went in. And the surgeon is disgusted by me saying, well, your daughter's developed a very ghoulish interest in your injury, Jerry. And I'm just trying to fucking put it together and make it work and get the clip. And I just didn't do it. And I finally wrote that story for this storytelling class. And it was the first time I had really written for myself, and in a way that was more myself, in quite a while. And everyone was, very just, oh my God, you're an amazing writer. And getting that kind of feedback and feeling how that felt, I suddenly just reevaluated that maybe because I thought my life was over at 27. I thought I had my shot, and I was way too old, and I couldn't ever do anything different. And it made me just think, what did I ever want to do? I had always said that I was going to write for Saturday Night Live and Vanity Fair. And, but I never took any steps in that direction. I just didn't think you could take that. Right. And so, then I just started taking screenwriting courses, and I started taking classes at Second City, and I started doing stand-up and at open mics, and developed friendships with, comics on the Chicka Haha Go boards or whatever, and was emailing with Kyle Kinane and the Chicago guys. Yeah. And all because of a storytelling class. Yeah. And then did you have to read the story? Yeah, I did. Okay. Yeah. And from that, I decided, well, I'm going to start writing again. So I'm going to create a blog. But I was so embarrassed because I just thought that I had all these legit credits, and to be doing like a Blogspot blog, just what a confession of failure. Yeah, I'm sure like when you initially did the podcast, we didn't know anything. Exactly. Yeah. And so I did that. And so, Steve, basically saw the writing I had done on my blog, and so talked to me about potentially, working at the Post. And it was very much a long shot. I mean, he had to really do a lot of convincing, because I hadn't worked in newspapers in years, but they then hired me. And it was like I turned 30, I got divorced, I got the job at the Post. And also, something I started to say earlier but I didn't finish was that my parents divorced each other for 5 years. Uh-huh. So when I was married They were divorced that entire time, and my dad had 2 different fiancés. Right when I announced that I was getting divorced, they remarried each other. So it was a lot of changes and chaos.
Did you finish the master's?
No. I never took a single education course. Not a single one. All I did was take...
You took storytelling. That did it. That was enough.
That did it. That really did it. And also I think it happening, right. I had to write the story of my life on September 11th to turn in the next day. And it was just a very intense time for kind of, questioning.
Yeah.
I mean, I just remember asking myself, what did I ever want to do with my life?
Right.
And I had known people at Northwestern who had gone on and been successful as comedy writers. And I thought, well, why couldn't I do that?
Sure.
And that was something I had never even just considered. It was
Did you do any comedy writing? Did you do sketch and stuff when you were there?
Well, I mean, I mostly took a ton of classes. I took, I had Sharna Halpern at I.O. and Second City classes. I took acting classes, which taught me so much about writing. And I did do some, I worked with a lot of kind of people who didn't actually have any pull in the industry, but because I didn't know anything, I thought they did. So I just did tons of free work on,
Well, that's what you do.
Until you kind of learn the way the world works.
I think it works better. I mean, free work's not terrible if you do the work. It's not amounting to nothing.
No, it's not. It's not, but in my book, I try to give every single secret that I learned. I mean, I wish that I could have given even more, because something that I've noticed is that people are very protective sometimes about crucial bits of information.
Yeah.
Like the fact that, I mean, it took years until an entertainment lawyer, Jamie Roberts, he's the lawyer for Caroline's, and that's how I met him. I was just droning on and on to him about, I don't know, that I had met one of the Real Housewives and what was that going to do for my career. And I think I had an item coming up in page 6 and all these exciting things were happening. And, someone mentioned they were interested in me for reality TV. And he was like, Mandy, when people want to do a deal with you, And, it's very embarrassing to just be sitting there, naked like an asshole, just having had everything pulled out. But it's such a gift.
Yeah.
It's such a gift because everything changes after that, and you're able to realize that if someone isn't able to, give you a deal memo fairly initially,
sure,
that, they're just full of shit.
Yeah,
they're just talking. And there's no harm in that, but it's not going to lead anywhere.
So, did you see it yourself at different times in your career as one of these people that was, just painfully opportunistic?
Oh, yeah. Of course.
You cop to that?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's pretty, I think that is a pretty crucial quality for anyone who is successful in media, because the entire nature of it is to seize opportunities, and that by nature a lot of times can lead to opportunism. But I do think that, in my defense, that I'm not entirely, just opportunistic
you can
worm.
Write. Sure, right.
Well, yeah, I mean, I can write, but also I think that I really developed a sense of putting the person before the story and working at the Post and seeing, what happened to me in stories that I did for them, just writing a story, turning it in, and the headline initially had been confronting the ghosts of my past, and then it comes out in the newspaper, and the headline is How I Went from Chill to Psycho, and just knowing what can happen at a tabloid or at any media, when you agree to do it. I started then telling people, just so this could happen, because I didn't want to, set people up.
Right.
And I didn't want to have that kind of on my conscience that I was, sacrificing someone else's dignity for just, some dumb clip.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah, I mean, right, because you didn't have control over it.
Never do. You never do.
I think that's something unique to journalism, I guess, or tabloid writing or whatever, that the cutthroat nature of clickbait and presenting the story. And then I imagine the concessions you have to make with your own principles has got to be a pressure that's persistent always.
Yeah, I mean, I was told by more than one person when I would agonize about things related to feeling like I was, hurting other people. You just gotta, not think about it.
Huh.
You just gotta not, just put it away somewhere.
And when did that bite you in the ass?
Well, I think that I don't know that I didn't ever really have anyone who, I had various people who were, furious at me. And then a lot of times what would happen would be whatever had given, cause to their fury, some outrageous headline. They would then call me later and say, "Oh my God, I got all these TV bookers and producers calling me."
Yeah.
But just in terms of like how it felt, for me starting to just feel gross, the story that I wrote about in the book is, when I was asked to do a takedown piece on Bethany Frankel, who I had encountered, and she's one of those Real Housewives, and she'd always been, nice to me, and I certainly didn't have anything against her, and I just felt like there surely has to be someone else who can write this story, and I was told that, I had to do it, and I will say, though, that she is someone who has a lot of enemies in the business, because whenever you are assigned to write like a takedown type piece and the word gets out and you get this influx of calls, you start to see how many enemies someone has.
Sure.
And when you stop being nice to people when you're on the way up. Yeah.
So you saw that in action.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. And then I had told that story to Aaron Sorkin, and that became the genesis for like an episode of The Newsroom, and evil gossip character who they had called Bad Mandy in the writer's room, but because he wanted to make it clear that it wasn't me, this, character played by Hope Davis, who was just, just oozing easy sexuality and saying to the lead Olbermann-esque type character,
Jeff Daniels,
you just passed up a sure thing, and just watching that and just knowing, that I was exactly like that. I mean, I don't think I would say you just passed up a sure thing, but
right. But that's Sorkin's kind of weird 1930s rhythmic writing,
right.
Which I like. But at that time, how was that triangle? How did that sort of unfold? You, Sorkin, Olbermann?
Yeah. So that was just like I kind of became. I kind of used sobriety like a drug in a way, where it was like I was so aware, and so instead of like doing the steps and like being this more authentic person, I just I kind of the whole star fucking opportunism, social climbing thing played out. I would read 48 Laws of Power and The Art of Seduction by Robert Greene,
as opposed to the big book. And
as opposed to the big book. I didn't drink, so I mean, I guess that's good.
Yeah, sure.
But I wanted something that was like thrilling and exciting.
Yeah.
And, so I met Sorkin and Olbermann and Lloyd Grove, who's at the Daily Beast. And I would just kind of like email them about, and Olbermann's taking me out. And, and it was just really, because that's one of the bits of advice is try to create love triangles. Uh-huh. And it was just, the only one I really dated seriously, I dated Lloyd seriously for about a year. Olbermann, I just went on a couple of dates with, and then Sorkin, it was just like hookups and dates over, a matter of years. But, it was something that was in my mind, it's not like any of those guys were sweating each, but that was, right. That was to me the center of my exciting universe.
Sure. These were big guys.
Sure. Yeah. Because I couldn't be interesting on my own, but if I could attach myself to a man who was, then I could derive some sort of self-worth.
Sure.
Because the way that you get self-worth is you fuck it into yourself.
That's what I hear. Is this part of the advice?
That's what you learn in therapy. Yeah. No. Yeah.
Yeah, just the proximity and but there is a power to it too, though. It's not. On some side, I could see it. The self-esteem, acting out and all that. But to have power over those dudes on some level, it's you're not going to win.
No, of course not.
But,
no,
but no. You can make them do things.
Yeah, and you. The other thing is that I was never hot most of my life. And when I got divorced, I went from like a size 14 to a size 6, and I started dyeing my hair and wearing makeup and so I kind of, when I came to New York, I kind of had the first, experiences of being like a little bit of a piece of ass, like a 7 maybe even, and like, so that was trying to use that specific kind of power and thinking that was something that was really important to capitalize on because it had a limited lifespan,
Now, did anyone else other than Jonathan Ames give you pushback about the names being in the book?
Another person did, just because, and I won't, say his name because I didn't include it in the book, but just because it was about drugs, and he said, his mom really, follows his stuff. So I, and then another pretty famous comic I just took out entirely because I just don't. It's just not important, you know. Sure. If I would have had to take everyone out, that would have been okay. Sure. But I just felt like you don't do podcasts with people anonymizing them. Yeah. You don't, it's, and also a really big theme in my life has just been being, the girl in high school who you invite over to help you with your homework and stay up all night laughing with. And then at the party with the popular kids, you just don't see her. Yeah. And so I think, so sad. I know, it is so sad.
It is.
It's very heartbreaking. And it's like that right there is like high school, and it is for like a lot of, women who just don't have that, socialization training of like a kind person to say, oh, you don't have to worry about that. Right. They're all just going to be, Yeah.
No one's going to turn out well.
Trophy. Yeah. And so, yeah.
What I learned about the memoir thing, or even about talking frankly or candidly here, without, not in conversation, was a woman this was a thing of advice that I got. Okay. Was that, when you do write your side of something. Yeah. The other person doesn't have a voice in it.
Right.
And that was one of those things that stopped me from getting too personal about relationships I'm in here.
Right.
Because you start talking or you write stuff and they may want a rebuttal, but what are they going to do?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And when I said the portion to Olbermann.
Yeah.
he had,
notes.
He did have notes. Yeah. And, and I was happy to incorporate, and it wasn't like he told me to write something, not at all, but it was just a clarification of like, just something like a detail that I had, not reported correctly because we just went on a couple of dates. How do I know? And, I would much prefer to.
Nice of him to remember.
Well, I don't know if you've ever read, David Carr's Night of the Gun.
I haven't.
So he's like one of the most famous New
I
York.
know who he is.
Yeah, okay, you know who he is.
Yeah.
And so he, in his memoir, he kind of sought out to do the anti, James Frey, where he used all of his source material and he interviewed people. And so I tried to kind of keep that in mind and reaching out to people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all the places that you worked that we would know, like the Post, and then you did, XO Jane, is that what that was?
Right. Yeah. So I did, Jane Pratt hired me and I worked there for 2012 to 2015.
And
Kat Marnell had just quit and
you were doing the dating column?
Yeah, I was writing about, my life, who I was hooking up with, and who I was,
Good gig though.
Yeah, it was fun. It was just whenever you are mining your life for
content.
That was cool because it sounded like content.
Now, see, you still got a hearing problem, kind of.
Yeah, content.
I
know. Okay. So I wrote about things that were happening, but because it was such a commenter-heavy environment, you were told kind of constantly, not only like, hey, I think does she have a lazy eye? Or, she's had so much Botox that, just things about your appearance, which is one thing, but then also just, long, like 500 word, ruminations on why you would never find happiness because you're this type of person. And
you're saying these were the comments.
Yeah. And some of them were, really lovely. But it is, that's a difficult thing to have coming in and have part of your job be that you're supposed to interact, because how do you interact with that? Yeah. And so I would say I do not recommend that model for anyone doing
that type of writing. Or that
No, I think that type of writing is okay to a certain extent. But I wrote a piece for New York Magazine that was commissioned where they wanted me to reflect on the first person industrial complex, meaning
that's interesting.
Meaning that because Jane Pratt is a genius, she changed the game. You now see big newspapers with headlines that are, quote, I slept with Donald Trump or whatever. It would never have been that headline years ago. It's that first person writing that has changed it because people respond to it. And so this piece that I wrote,
unclear whether it's a good or bad thing, really.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think that sometimes it can be a good thing. I think that sometimes it's, I honestly, all of the sexual life of politicians, that's something that has never really been my jam.
You know what's amazing is how many of them are utterly unfuckable.
Yeah.
It's like when I look at like some of these dudes, I'm like, who is fucking that guy?
Right.
And why? And that's got to be part of their problem.
I remember when I was dating the guy that I wrote about in the New York Post dating column I did for 2 years, and I called him super preppy. Yeah. And I remember one time I saw his bank account statement, and I gave him a blowjob, and I think it was like the best blowjob I had given in my life up until that point, because I was just I had never been around people who had that much money. Yeah. And, which is, disgusting on my part to say. I'm not saying I'm proud of it, but I'm clearly not a gold digger because I didn't go that track.
Yeah.
No, it's not that I didn't succeed. I mean, I've dated plenty of other wealthy guys where all I had to do was just pretend that they were remotely interesting and I could have locked that shit down.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that's a soul death of sorts.
But was the blowjob, were you actually turned on by the amount? Or
yeah, sure. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, that's it.
Yeah.
That's good.
And I mean, the reason that I kind of stopped being that way is because it just makes you feel morally bankrupt, you know? Getting turned on by like a bank statement is the same thing as getting turned on by ecstasy because you're just rolling on drugs, you know? I mean, it's a similar kind of disconnect from like your true self.
Yeah. So after like what, tell me about the sort of, the catharsis, the denouement, the change, the bottom, what happened?
Well, I mean, I got sober because I just had one bad experience too many and there
was no topper. There was no.
Well, I mean, I met a guy who I had 8 days of sobriety and I went to a going away party for someone who was leaving Page Six.
Yeah.
And I think I had that sobriety glow. And a cute young man approached me and was talking me up, and I thought, oh, this is so cool. I'm even meeting like cool guys in sobriety.
Yeah, 8 days.
And then he said, yeah, exactly. Exactly. And he
a whole new world.
He said, I can tell you're different. Like you're cool. I've heard that there are these sex club parties. And I've never met a girl who was cool enough to go to one. Uh-huh. And I just kind of realized it was like the switch, that it was just all because he immediately laser vision pointed me out or saw me as, the girl that you could take to a sex club party.
Uh-huh.
And then it kind of, dropped again. And he said, there's actually one tonight. And I said, all right, you little shit, but, get me a drink, 'cause I'm not going to go to a fucking orgy sober. And then I emailed everyone who I talked to about sobriety initially, saying, I think it's great that people do it, but I just have these legendary nights that are just these epic experiences. Yeah. And so I just, I don't think that's for me, because this is, who has this happen to them, right?
I know this moment.
Yeah. And then, I also thought that guy genuinely liked me, which is so,
Demented.
Yeah. Demented.
Right.
And I didn't hear from him for a while, and then
Did you go to the club?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I ended up, I was the best, I was like, a small crowd, gathered because I just immediately started, games for hey, why don't you, go down on that girl? And then,
You were the counselor? The camp counselor? The master of ceremonies?
Conciliary.
Yeah.
I've always been like, I think I said this drunkenly to the cab driver on the way to meet Jonathan Ames. I've always been like ultimate slumber party girl, where it's just like, let's play Truth or Dare. Let's play I Never.
Yeah.
Let's make the, most of this moment.
Yeah.
And so I started that game of, Dare or Dare, I guess it was.
Yeah.
Then I was dared to go down on the girl and did it in just the right way, where you are, like sticking your ass up in the air so that it looks as much like a porn scene as possible, and And then I got dared to, and anyway, so there's like a coke dealer who's watching the whole thing, and he's like, complimenting the guy who brought me, saying, you got the best girl right there,
Uh-huh.
and no one was buying any coke, and he said, I'm gonna give you a line, cause I just want to have it burned in my brain of you doing coke off that girl's big ass titties. So did that, and went back to the guy's place, fell in his bathtub, got a huge bruise on my knee, and then when he was fucking me, he was like, "You are a whore, aren't you?" And that dirty talk is fun when it's done where there isn't a sense of
it being an honest question,
sinister, yeah, where it isn't like. Where it isn't like, you are just a worthless, disposable fucking set of holes.
Yeah.
And he had been so kind of like, just, charming and how funny I was and all these things. And, so I hooked up with, another guy, and it was doing, coke and getting fucked up, and I was like about to have sex with him, and I just was like, I don't want to, I'm just doing this to blot out the fact that I feel so dumb that other guy hasn't called me. And
the sex party guy.
Yeah.
That winner.
I know, in my mind, because he was like, yeah, we can go on like a sexual Heart of Darkness journey together. And I was just like, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And, so I reached out to, again, the same people who were a little less indulgent this time, because I had given them now my big speech about why sobriety wasn't for me. And one of them said, Mandy, you can keep calling me up every 3 weeks, or you can change your life. And for some reason, that just really landed. And I realized that I had always thought that it was you go out, and then depending upon the signs from the universe, you act accordingly. So if a guy is cute enough, if he's funny enough, if he is offering you a very unique opportunity, like a sex club that you don't normally, okay, all signs point to
this is it.
That you have to do this.
My path.
And so instead, I went to meetings on my own, and then at like 22 days of sobriety, I heard from that dude again, and he asked me to go to another party, and I went with him, and right when I arrived, I was brought an alcoholic drink that I didn't order. And then on the way into the club, they were squirting vodka into people's mouths, and I declined. Inside the club, they were also doing that. I declined. He brought me a drink. I declined. And then the fifth time was after the party, and of course nothing happened this time at the party. I just was like interviewing people and being like, and what do you do to the, woman getting like fucked in the ass by another guy? And she's like, I'm a corporate lawyer. And, we're just decompressing after, and, I ordered, a Pellegrino, and I was brought a champagne. I just suddenly, my, mental lies started kicking in that this was a sign, and I remembered, like, I felt in my purse the little 24-hour coin.
Yeah.
That people had passed around and they had touched, and that like all these people actually really cared about me, and that this guy I was with like didn't care if I lived or died, and that for me was a very critical moment, and I didn't have the drink. Like I decided I didn't have to just be, a passive participant where life was happening to me. I could actually make choices that I was going to decide that,
that's a big moment.
It's a really big moment. And it's a weird thing that, it took me until 36 to have, because I've always been someone who, I mean, I got a paper route when I was like 12 years old, and this guy showed up at the house and just said, yeah, your daughter applied for a job. And my parents were like, what? You know, like I've always had it in certain respects, but I think that when it came to something like drugs and alcohol, because I was told so often, I mean, I remember one time talking about sobriety to a guy who worked in newspapers, and he said, there's nothing so unattractive as a woman who can't hold her liquor. And things like that I took as being like absolutes, that this was off the table, that I couldn't be that unfun drag that couldn't hang.
Yeah. But you're an alcoholic.
Yeah.
You know, I mean. And, you know, learning that, whether you're a drug addict or alcoholic, I mean, I think 35, 40, 50, I was 40, 35, 36. I mean, you know, what are you going to do?
Right.
You know, you're just lucky that you had that moment.
Yeah.
It's not an age thing. It's got, you know, and you know that. It's got no bearing. No matter what you do with the rest of your life or however, you know, you define yourself.
Yeah.
That fucking thing, you know, and then it opened up a whole door to all this other shit.
Yeah. My life started getting so much better immediately.
Yeah.
Just all of these, everything started coming together, even though I was, you know, still fairly like rotten on the inside, because I didn't do any of the work, and I just then tried to, you know, create new like addictions and dramas and so forth. But it's like you have to, you know, change doesn't happen overnight. You have to sometimes be okay with that incremental epiphany type deal.
Yeah, and also, like, it's just weird that a lot of stuff sort of falls away. You know, it's easier to be onto yourself when you're sober. Like, you know, when you're acting out or you're doing other shit, whatever it is. And either you can accept it or you can't, as long as you're not drinking. That's the tricky thing about, you know, that when you have that sort of type of disposition, it's looking for other shit to, you know, jack you up. Like, you know, when I got sober, I left my wife and went with the chick that got me sober.
Right.
I ended up marrying her.
Right.
It was a fucking disaster. It was just a fucking disaster. Because I put it all on her. It just, the shit that's happened sober, it's just crazy.
Yeah, you have to be, I think, okay with whoever if you get a partner. I think that you're not going to be a good partner if you're not okay on your own.
Yeah,
and
that's
if you
true.
Are, and if you are and I think that's how I used to look for partners, was like, oh, this person will save me, this person will give me an identity, this person will.
But consciously, or just you look back on it and you think,
oh yeah, I look back.
Yeah.
I mean, I never
knew
I never realized that was what was going on.
I know when people tell me, like, if I talk about a relationship and people say this is what you were doing, there's still part of me it's like, no, I don't think that's what
I will say that listening to the audio that I recorded, sometimes accidentally and sometimes not, of me drinking and hearing how fucking combative I get when I drink, was so rough to listen to. But it was also so eye-opening. There was a tape from college where my roommate was asking me, are you okay, Mandy? And I just said, I'm fucking great.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's so awkward. And I now, when I hang out with drunk people, it's like I never tell them the things that they, you know, did or said, but I want to just be like, record yourself sometime.
Yeah.
Because that's a gift you can give to yourself. I'm not saying you're anything, but just, it's
unsustainable.
Yeah, it's fairly unsustainable, I would say. But I also, you know, a thing that I like to say is that, you know, drugs are really fun.
Yeah.
And that those nights can also be that I think sometimes when you try to just, you know, paint it as just being the worst, it's like you can't, if you don't look at just, you know,
some of it was great.
Exactly.
You know, it's like the recovery thing. You can accept the past and not close the door on it. It's like,
right.
I don't have, I don't really feel like I have too many regrets.
Yeah, that's good.
I mean, I did some shit, but I don't like it was. I don't know. I've never been that fucking out there.
I think the regrets that I have are when I have acted out of anger and I have just been a nasty, just castrating fucking bitch to people because I just, it really makes me sad that knowing like that I do to myself, like that I put that out on other people, because you can't ever really take that, back except by being honest about it.
Yeah, but you can definitely fuck some. Yeah, you can hurt people and they can never, forgive you sometimes.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I've reached out to people to make amends and they're like, no,
You don't get it. You don't get that.
Yeah. And it's like, that's great. I respect that. Have a good life.
Oh, that tone? No.
No. God. Yeah.
You just do it again.
That's the thing. Yeah, right. Wouldn't that be great if I just was just like, by the way, you have the worst breath and you fucking are a no talent. Yeah, right. No. But I mean, I have to take out my anger somewhere,
What do you do with it?
I mean, I think just trying to be funny and just like talking to friends and talking shit, being vicious.
Yeah. But doesn't writing help?
Yeah. And actually, like, the reason when I mentioned before that, I went from being, just like a chubby wife to then being kind of like a hot piece of Craigslist ass, like the reason that I got divorced and the reason that I started the blog also, besides doing that class, the other thing, was, and I'm sure many people have said this thing to you, but I started doing the fucking morning pages. Yeah. I started doing those in 2004 and that I lost 60 pounds. I realized that my marriage was toxic.
Yeah.
And I started writing for myself again. And I haven't, because I've been so busy writing the book and everything, I haven't done them in a while, but I did them recently and I had such a better day because of it. Because I was able to just say exactly my side of the story and why I was completely right, and, that was a funny thing in writing the book was my editor, I would turn in the occasional section that would just be kind of like, should have been called like Mandy settles some scores, it was just like really, she was like, yeah, you don't really need this. You can just,